Right. Good evening and good morning and good afternoon to those who live in different time zones. It's the beauty of having these digital events, obviously, that everybody can join at their own leisurely time. Or if you're watching this at a later stage, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about branching strategies 101 for data professionals. What that entails is actually I'm going to talk about what branching is and how it works and how you can use it in your day-to-day work as a data professional. So I don't think I'm going to be coming out with major magic solutions. It's just basics, but sometimes it can be very helpful in the future. Right. Who am I? My name is Karim Ourtani. I'm a developer. I work for the Flemish government for the Department of Care, Department Zorg in Flemish. I'm also a board member of DataMinds. I have been since 2007. I'm also the track owner for Data BI AI at Techorama in Belgium, which is scheduled every year in May. I'm an ultimate geek, you would say. I use the word geek, not nerd. I do have a life. I started working on my first computer was a TRS-80. So if you know what a TRS-80 is, we have something in common. We are very old. I started programming on GW Basic, and professionally, I started working with SQL Server in version 6.5 and Visual Basic 3.0. When I'm not sat behind a computer, which is not that often, I like to travel. I like going thrifting, gardening, Lego. And I'm one of those guys that when I buy something from Lego, I buy it twice. Once to keep in the box and once to put it together. My contact details are in the left column. Feel free to contact me at any time. So let's get started. What are we going to talk about? What is branching? What types of branches do we have? What are some of the best practices that we can apply? And then I'm going to actually explain two of the most common strategies that are being used. And actually what I will be doing, and I have to admit I am biased, I'm going to explain one of them very briefly, and then I'm going to actually focus more on the other one, on the second one, which is the one that I use day to day, which I believe is a good one and an easy one to get started with. Let's put it that way. I will try and include demos. This session is a session with fewer demos than if you've seen me speak before, you will be used to. What is branching? Branching is a methodology that allows you to take a piece of code or scripts or whatever, and you make a copy of it locally. You make your changes, which is, for example, this is the main branch. So this is the repository of all the code that everybody works on. And then at one point, you take one piece. At this point, you make your change here, and then you commit it, and then you put it back. If there are no conflicts in the changes that you've made, you will be able to put it back. At the same time, it means that somebody else can do exactly the same and then start here and work on their thing and then put it back together. That is what branching is. Actually, it is not that complicated. Branching is based on the most branching is a version is a form of versioning. And actually, the tool that is being used most worldwide is Git branching. And the founder of Git branching is none other than Linus Torvald, the guy who invented Linux. And he actually invented Git branching because he needed help for people to help him develop Linux. So I think that's a nice little quirky, nice to know about branching and Git branching in particular. What are the main types of branches? Well, there are quite a few, and actually, to be honest, what's in the name? A branch, you can give it any name you want. But the main branch in the past, it used to be called the master branch, but we can't use that anymore for obvious reasons, is actually the official branch of your repository. So all the code that is in there is actually the code that is actually the code that everybody works from. Then you also have a development branch, which means that you can actually have a branch that works off the main branch. And then you can start doing your developments on that. And when you finish, you put it back into development branch. And when everybody has finished their developments, you can then say, well, this is what is okay and it works. We're going to put it now in the main branch. That is what branching is. Feature branches. A feature branch is actually if you've got one piece of code that you want to amend. And I know I'm talking about code, but a code can be a script or can be anything really that is part of your project. Even a Word document can also be changed in a branch. So a feature branch, and we don't create bugs, we create features. So the name says itself, a feature branch is a branch that you take off of the main branch, you develop your feature, and when it's ready, you put it back either in your development branch or in your main branch. Then when it comes to the moment that you want to release your branches, your code to your environments, that's when you create a release branch. And why would you do that? Well, actually, that is very simple. It's a branch that you say, this is what we're actually going to be putting on deploying now to a particular environment, so that if we need to make any changes, we actually do work only on that change until sometimes you need to create a hotfix, which is the next stop point, because something isn't quite working on the server. And then when you want to fix something on a release branch, usually that's a hotfix branch. Sometimes even on the main branch, if you see that something is, again, when it comes to branch names, what's in a name? So that's a quick overview of all the branch types. Is that clear for everyone? Any questions or comments? No? Okay.
Currently no questions.
Okay. I have to be careful because I have a feeling that I'm going way quicker than I anticipated. Right. What are the best practices? Well, actually, when you make a change, keep your strategy simple. Simple in the sense that you say, this is a change I need to make. I make a branch for it. I make my change, and then I come back and put it back. And then the next change I need to make, instead of saying, and oh yeah, and now I thought of doing that, I'm going to add it to my branch as well. No. First check in the current branch, and then when that is done, make a new branch, put your change, because that way you know that what you are changing is like a unit, a unit that works, that you're actually going to put back into your main branch. What does that mean? That means that you can ensure the quality of your main branch, because there's only tiny little changes that you are adding. And by adding them, and you will see that in the future slide, you add them with what is called a pull request. And the pull request is meant to say, hey, I've made these changes to the code. I want to put it back into the main branch or the development branch. And then you actually ask your colleagues, hey, what do you think of this? Is this okay, this code? And even, to be honest, whenever I do that, I think 7 out of 10 times our architect will have comments on my pull request. You forgot this, do you do that? Why is this? This is actually twice the amount of work. For all intents and purposes, I also develop in .NET. So sometimes it's also about C# code. SQL code, PowerShell scripts, everything. We try to do as much as possible in our team using branches. And then actually what is very important is actually using the right naming of your branches. And I will cover that later as well. Right. So when we keep our branching strategies simple, what does that mean? It means, sorry, this should be here. Just bear with me. I've actually covered it already a little bit, and now I realize I actually made the same mistake in Germany when I presented this last time. What do we actually do? It's you create, so let me go over it again very quickly. So you have your features, you develop your feature, and when you are finished, you merge it back into the main branch. During that merge, which is called a pull request, you can then actually also add comments, link it to tasks if you want. And that way you can maintain a high, the quality of your code. And there is also, because the pull request requires a colleague, one or more colleagues to review your code, you actually have de facto peer review of your code at the same time without actually having to spend too much time on it, because it's a small what's it called? It's a small change in your branch that is being worked on. Yeah. Right. So a feature branch. What does that do? Again, it seems like I'm repeating myself, but it is very important to understand this, because once you get the hang of this, and it took me about a week or so to actually really get the hang of this. Once you get the hang of this, it becomes a second nature. So you want to develop something, you go to your main branch, you create a new branch, you give it a correct name, and that way you can isolate the work that you do within your branch without actually interfering with the main branch. Because at the end of the day, and we will see that later, your main branch need to be a stable branch. You need to know that when something is on the main branch, it will always work. And then also very important is actually agree on a naming convention for your branches. Sounds really silly, but it can help you also just by looking at the name of the branch, what it is. And I will actually cover that in my demo later on. Next. So what does that mean? That means that when you want to ensure that the quality of your branch is the highest, that's what actually is important. Because, as I said, your main branch needs to be the one that from which you know if somebody looks at that, that is actually code that works. Code, scripts, whatever. But we know that won't give any errors. And it sounds easy the way I say it, but it's not necessarily that easy, because sometimes little words, one word can make the world a difference. I will try and maybe create such an error, but I'll see if it works, if I can get it to work. Right. And then actually what you need to do as well is that if you you can actually add a policy to your branching that says that if I want to merge something into the main branch, I cannot merge it just like that. It needs to be a pull request that needs to be reviewed by one or more colleagues and needs to be approved. And then once only then it can be merged into the main branch. What does that mean? That means that, for example, what you can do is say, well, the pull request will do two things. One, it will tell your colleagues, hey, there's something to review by someone. And secondly, if you choose to, you don't have to, but usually most people do it, you can then actually launch a build process that actually builds your solution or your project. So that way you know that this compilation of the code that is in there doesn't generate any errors. In the environment that I work in, we do actually this build on both our .NET objects and our SQL Server objects, and .NET Core, and also some NPM. I mean, there's a whole lot of building that does that. It happens when somebody makes a pull request. In our environment, a build takes about 15 to 20 minutes when somebody wants to make a pull request. Yes.
In the meantime, we got our first question in as well.
So and who is the lucky one?
We have someone asking if multiple people are working on the same repository, branches will still affect the databases. Is there a way to branch the database together with the code, not having to open new workspaces and changing databases for each person?
Right. Let me read that again. If multiple people are working on the same repo, that is what you need branching for. Branches will still affect the databases. What do you mean by branches will still affect the database? As long as the branch is not checked in, it will not be. Ramon, can you ask the question maybe verbally so that maybe I can understand it better?
Yes, the thing is that when you're working on the database, you're running code, you're testing things, and that it ends up creating issues with the data that is supposed to be in the database. So
yes, but the thing is, when you develop, you always develop on a local database on your machine or on another database that is not your main database.
If you have a local machine, I'm developing mostly on Fabric and Databricks. I'm not working with local databases.
Okay. What I do here is we have a database elocat, and when I work locally, I actually have a copy locally. Now, to be honest, I work for the government, so we have very little stuff that is going to the cloud. So it's almost a benefit of not being able to go to the cloud. So I can create a local database. So your question is there a way to branch the database together with the code? And when you say the code, you mean the code of an application?
Yes, as you open a new branch to develop a feature, let's say, like I know I can open a workspace. I know that locally I can create a database, but the problem of creating a database locally is that I have to change the code at a certain point to point back to the original database where the changes have to happen. So it introduces a lot of space for error.
Okay, now I know what you mean. Okay,
space for error there.
No. First of all, when you create a branch, you create a branch on your entire repo anyway. So if there's other code than your data code, it will also be in that branch. Secondly, and that's actually one of the benefits of working this way. Normally, to be honest, I haven't got any experience with Fabric, right? But I'm assuming that it's going to be the same principle, given that it's deployment on Azure. Actually, what it is that you can actually define variables in your what's it called, in your pipeline that actually specify that during this particular release, I use this variable. For this variable, I use this value. For that variable, I use that value. So you use parameters, yes. Yeah. I can show you that if you want, but let me.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. If I don't get to it, remind me later during the demo. So there we go. Yeah. Thank you, Wout, for that sharing. It's actually what Wout does is the same thing, but he uses DBT. But you can also define your variables and your parameters just in your Azure DevOps pipeline. Just for the record, we work completely on Azure DevOps. So, but the principles are the same on GitHub for those that are actually using GitHub. Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Wout. Does that kind of answer your question? I don't think completely, but I think it can put you in the right direction, I think, personally. Do you agree? Ramon?
Yes, it's good. Let's go. Yeah, it's good. Let's move on. I
Okay.
got it.
Okay. Right. Thank you for the question, though. Right. So, yeah, we were talking about the branch policy, right? So the branch policy is actually a certain number of code rules that you actually implement on your branches that say if somebody wants to merge something into this branch, what extra conditions need to be met before the merge can be completed. And usually it is that, for example, usually it will say the full solution needs to build without errors. It needs to be linked to a ticket, so it needs to have a ticket number, and it needs to be approved by one of the colleagues or all of the colleagues, or if it's to this branch, it needs to be developed. It needs to be approved by one specific colleague. So you can set all that up. So that is what you do to ensure your branch quality. By doing that, creating what they call the pull requests, just go back here. You nurture an environment where there is collaboration and review of the code real time on a daily basis. So actually requiring colleagues to review your pull requests is actually a job that doesn't take long. And by doing it that way, you actually have got code reviews and peer reviews at the same time, and the responsibility of the code being put into the solution is actually divided across the entire team. Right. Next, branch naming conventions. So it is very important to actually, just as with almost everything in IT, the naming convention sometimes is the most important part of the whole process. So these are 4 examples of how it could work. But the one that we use at work is features, and this is actually plural at work, / the feature ID, which is the number of the ticket that generated the reason for me to change or add code, and then the name. And usually the name is the title of the ticket, but in lowercase and with hashes in between, which means that immediately, just by looking at the number of the branch, the name of the branch, I can immediately go and look up the ticket and see what is actually the description of the code, what the code should be doing. So that's one piece of code one piece of documenting your code that you actually do not need to do. If you have the time, do it, because I speak from personal experience. Documentation is half your work, to be honest. Sometimes I know if you're pushed for time, it's the first thing that actually goes, but I speak from personal experience. If you can, write your documentation first, and once it's written, the code will flow out of your fingers magically almost. Right. Next. Right, there are 2 main strategies. The first one that I'm going to discuss today is Git flow branching. And the second one is trunk-based development. Now, the trunk-based development is the one that we use, and I'm going to be spending more time on that one because I personally believe that for data professionals, it's the one to go. It's the one to actually use properly. First of all, Git flow branching, how does it work? So you have your main branch, and from that you create a development branch. And then for everyone that needs to work, they actually make their branch of development branch. and then merge back into the the development branch again. That means that your main branch, until it's complete, your development branch is I'm gonna maybe stop using the word branch because otherwise it sounds like I'm repeating myself. So by merging back into the development, yeah, your main will actually remain clean of any changes. It is only when you decide, right, this part of the code up until this point is okay and it works, and okay, we will actually we put it back into the main branch. The only thing is by doing it that way, and you can see it from the picture, there's going to be a hell of a lot of branches that you actually work on. Let me just go into more detail. So we have our development branch again. I decide to work on a feature, and sorry, Ramon, you asked the question. Ramon decides to work on a second feature. He creates a branch here, and he is finished before I do. The little dots are the small commits that you make intermittently. And then he puts it back into development branch. And then I continue working up to my other commit, my third commit, and I'm finished with my work and I put it into the branch. 9 times out of 10, I am going to actually have to pull the development branch back in and then actually try and put them back together so that any conflicts that there are can be resolved. And I do it at this point. And then when this is finished, it continues. And then when we're ready, we say, okay, now we're going to say this is going to be released. So we make a release branch and we do exactly the same. And when the release branch has been approved and it works in production or in acceptance, we then move it back to the main branch and we can start again. As you can see and hear, it sounds really complicated. It works, but it's one of those strategies where you have to keep your mind with it. You have to look at a lot of things. And quite often you need to then go and fix the merges that you try and do during your development process. Excuse me. The next one, trunk-based development. As far as I'm concerned, this is the one that I've been using for the last 3 years now, non-stop. And it's the one that really works well, and it's simple. I mean, I believe in the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. So this is what I like to use. Now, what is trunk-based development? Actually, you have one main, let me just go to the bigger picture. You have one main branch, right? And then what you do is create a feature off of the main branch, and then you make your changes. And then when you're ready, you commit them back. I work on a branch, my colleague works on a branch, and we commit them back to the main branch. During those points here, at these moments in time, we do the pull requests, as I mentioned, and you know that at this point, the code that is in there works anyway. And when you do your pull request, it will be added to there. If there are any conflicts, you will be notified of the conflicts of this pull request, and you actually then have to fix them. Either you can fix them yourself, or you can call your colleague and say, hey, I want to do this, you want to do that. How do we get out of it? And then you either get your colleague to do a hotfix on his, or you just do the hotfix on your branch and then you put it back in. And usually when you have one of those conflicts in our team, the two developers that actually, we kind of have the unspoken rule that if I try to submit something that conflicts with a branch of a colleague, I then actually fix it with what I think it should be, but then I actually explicitly ask my colleague, I need you to do the pull request review. because it affects your code. Right. And what do you do then? Then at some point you say, hey, we're going to actually release this code to acceptance or to a separate server. You create a release branch, you put it in, you deploy it, and when it's deployed, you can just carry on. Or if you then see that something needs to be fixed on that environment, you create what is called a hotfix, and that hotfix, as you can see here with the red line, stays within your release branch and doesn't go back to your main branch until you are 100% certain that what is being released is correct, and then you put it back into the main branch with the need to possibly having to resolve conflicts or anything like that. And that is what trunk-based development is mainly, really. I don't know, is that clear for everyone? Let me see.
We currently have no questions.
No questions.
So clear as a whistle.
Either I put everyone to sleep or it was so clear and concise. No, I'm just kidding. Right.
It was clear and concise.
Thank you. I hope everybody agrees with you. The big advantage, like it says here, is that you actually have a continuous integration of all your codes. And then when you need to, when you do need to push, you need to test a lot and fix a lot. But in the end, you actually, in the long run, let's put it this way, the first 6 months when I had to do a lot of fixing, but in the long run, you actually start realizing what you know what you need to do and what you don't need to do, and that solves a lot of problems. Right. Then it's time for demos. So the demo. So one more time, any more questions or specifics about this? No?
No questions.
No. Okay. I'm going to be doing my demo. Let me just... Right, I'm going to be doing the full demo. DevOps demo. Right. This part of the demo is completely going to be run in Azure DevOps. Why? Is because historically we started our project, our .NET project, in Azure DevOps. We then actually added the whole database development to it, and it seems to work, and it does what it needs to do for us. So I am a big believer that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there is no reason to actually use another tool at this moment for us. Although we are looking at some GitHub tooling for specific monitoring of specific cases, but that is something that is only for 2025. Right. So, like I said, at the end of the day, the big advantage of working in branches is that you actually have a history over everything you do. Plus, you can link things to each other. So let's go. I'm going to be using Azure DevOps. Are there people that have never worked with Azure DevOps in their professional career? Because that is not really the purpose of this demo, but it's important that you understand what it does. So what I will do is briefly show you a board, add a couple of tickets. So let's first start with the beginning. We have a repo, SQL KO demo. I have a hell of a lot of folders, maps, it's Flemish, folders and project files. The pipelines is the way we deploy our codes, test plans. I'm not using the artifacts or the artifacts that you want to use. professionally at work, we actually use the artifacts bit because we actually have our own NuGet packages that we use internally. So do we actually use the artifacts part of Azure DevOps to actually publish internal NuGet packages. The overview is just a summary page. The dashboards, that's for our business analysts to use. The wiki, that's quite interesting. I don't use a wiki because it's just for demo purposes, but we actually use the wiki pages to actually describe certain procedures. So sometimes, you know, if you have a Word document for a new developer that starts on the team, saying in order to be able to get going, you need to do this, that, and that. We actually create wiki pages so that it's easier to maintain them, and everybody on the team can maintain the document. But if you want to work in a Word document, it's up to you. The boards, and that's the one that we will actually be using. I will actually be creating a board, data grillen. Just going to delete that one. So let's create a new PBI demo for data mines. There we go. So I've created a new PBI, a user story, the description. This is the code, the description of what we need to do. We will add, just have a look. Sorry, just bear with me. That's the other one. SQL KO demo. Yeah, okay. Just bear with me. Branching data mines. What? I might have a little problem, but nothing we can't fix. Maybe I just need to switch branches. That's possible. Okay. Just a minute. Let me just go back here. Okay. I might have a little problem, apparently. But let's go back to first the demo. So this will add a couple of tables to the, and then you can say table 1, table 2, table 3, up. I'm gonna make this a user list. There we go. Save and close. Okay. Usually that is what our business analyst does. He writes a little ticket. And then what we then do is we do a task breakdown, and then we actually create new tasks. So add link to new item. It's a child work item task. And then you can say create tables. Or you can say create table 1, table 2, table 3. I'm just going to do 1 for all of them, save and close. So I got user story 40, create tables is 41. It's very important. So there we go. I'm going to put this in my OneNote. And let's go back to the Visual Studio, because I seem to be having a problem. So let's just switch to you look at demo, SQL KO demo. There we go. I cannot believe this, but the solution that I created. Here we go. I think this is. Where are all my files? Oh no. I truly have. Let me just. Right. Oh yeah, I know what it is. There we go. I had it open. There we go. So if I go now to data mine start, there you go. So moral of the story is if you have a Word document and you have it open, switching branches is extremely complicated. Right. Let me just open here branching data mines, my solution. So here we go. So we are going to create three tables. It's 4 tables. No, it's 3 tables because the DBM migration is actually a processing table. That's why it's on a schema called DBA, because it's nothing to do with the actual application. Right. So I did prepare a lot of files, so it's not you do not have to be sitting here watching me adding scripts and files. We will be doing a few things. So the whole thing, I have a separate talk on how SQL Server data tools work, because this is what we actually use here. And I know, Olivier, you also have a session on that, and you actually use that quite intensively as well. Are there other people here that actually use SQL Server data tools on a daily basis or not? So on a daily basis, yes, indeed. Okay. So what we have done is when I make examples for my session, I actually try to use very basic solutions and examples, so that the principle is being explained, and not necessarily the what's it called, it doesn't need to be complicated. It's understanding the basics that is of importance. So let's go back to the board, because now we can actually go back. So we actually created a ticket, a task 41 to create the tables. So what I will do here is, I will show you the whole process. What I actually do is I usually then say features dash, the number is 41 dash create tables, that up, all in lowercase. There we go. And then I go back to here. Now you normally, you can actually start this branch, but I will actually start from this branch. But normally what you would do is well, actually I'm going to go from the master. There we go. It's up to date. So I go, yeah, my branch is still called master. In the presentation, I called it main. So I create a new branch. I'm using Visual Studio because that's a tool that I use on a daily basis, but the principle is exactly the same, whether you use Visual Studio Code, Azure Data Studio, or the tools from JetBrains. They all works the same. You can also use the command line to do that, but I just like the visual interface because it's good, and only revert to the command line when something is complicated to fix, or if something really went wrong. That's where the command line usually comes in handy, and usually it's a colleague of mine that does that because he has got way more experience than I do. I create a new branch, I give it a name, I use the word features, the number of my ticket, and I create my tables. We do create, there we go. So what it actually does is it takes what is in your main branch and actually creates a new branch under the new name. And any changes you make here will not have any influence on your original code and up until the moment that you actually merge it back into your code using a pull request. So imagine that I'm just now going to add this definition of this table. All these different tables. I have a certain number of stored procedures that I use. If the demo gods are with me, because I don't like this. It's always when you're doing a demo, right? You know the feeling, Olivier?
Yeah, that's most of the time when it happens.
The bigger that's also a good reason why you have to use branching. There we go. Oh, there we go. Visual Studio decided that it needs to restart. There we go. Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you. Hey, but that's life. That works. So that's one thing that is okay. They have been loaded and they're ready to use. Here we go. Right. I have my different pieces of code. And again, maybe I was too quick. Yes. Right. Let's go quickly into Management Studio. For those people that actually, and I think most of the people that are here, the big advantage about branching is that whether you use your tool, whether it is in Visual Studio Code, or any other tool, once you've created your branch, yes, oh, there you go. There we go. It restarted. Again, once you've created your branch, let me just... open. I'm not going to open anything here now. I'm just going to open this one here. Once you've created your branch locally here, right, which is what I just did, you don't have to work in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. So you can actually say, I just hope it's not going to allow me to do that. Let's go to properties. There we go. File path. So copy. You can then actually go into Management Studio, say File, Open Folder, and then actually open the folder of your project. There we go. Map selecteren, there we go. And then it opens this, and then you can actually access the scripts, but you have a big advantage is that you're working in the environment that you are used to. You don't have to necessarily, because any change that I make here now, just gonna say created. I'm just add here modified, just although it's not a table that a column that I need. There we go. The reason why I have the red squiggly is because I'm actually connected to a database that actually contains a table called dba.migration. But if you now go back to Visual Studio, you will see that there's a tick, which means that the edit is pending. You go and look at your Git changes, you can actually see this is a script that is being changed. And I didn't even change it here in this tool. And that is what is, I think, a very big advantage of Git branching as well. If you want to know what is being changed, you can now double click on this and it'll tell you what has changed. Look, I've added to modify it. So I haven't even done any commit or nothing, but I can also already see what is being changed. And that is also one of the big advantages of working with branches. Right, so I'm going to leave it in there just for the hell of it. And then to come back to to Ramon's question. So in this case, as you can see, I'm working locally. I would then say doesn't matter. It's just a quick demo. Yeah, test 1, 2, 3. I wouldn't necessarily call it test 1, 2, 3, but so we can close this. Oop. There we go. And now if I want to, I can now create in test 1, 2, 3, cannot create DBA because it's, oh yeah, I forgot it. Now, that is one thing that you do not necessarily get here in Management Studio. But if you now go back and open this file within Visual Studio, there we go. After a little while, it will actually tell you that it's wrong because I didn't actually change it. So this needs to say modified. There we go. I close it here and look at what's going to happen. Hey, I've changed. Yes, I do want to reload it. Now we can do F5. Oh, the schema DBA doesn't exist. Oh yeah, because I create a new table. So I need to do create schema DBA. Up F5. And now I can say that. But then you then go here. Refresh. Test 1, 2, 3. There we go. My table has been created. So you can now know that this script, once you save it, will actually work in a database where the schema DBA has been created and the table doesn't exist. But that's where SQL Server Data Tools is actually your tool to actually apply this. Right. I've done this now. Let's say I actually created all these tables, views, schemas, because as you can see, the definition of my schema is here as well. Let's say, okay, I do want to test it. We're going to deploy this. But again, Ramon, coming back to your question, I have actually, for all intents and purposes, I've also installed the Azure agent on this machine where I'm doing the presentation. And then I've actually created a pipeline that actually will deploy this project to a database called DataMines on this machine. Let's go back to Management Studio, refresh. That database isn't there yet. So let's just say, right, added the column, what was it called? Modified to table migration. There we go. And then I will link it to number 41. Excuse me. There we go. Create tables. Commit all. And I'm going to push it straight away. So what it does is it creates the changes locally, pushes it to the remote version of this branch. So at this moment in time, my main branch has not changed yet. But in order to be able to change it, I need to create what is called a pull request. I create it in the browser. You can also create it in Visual Studio, but I never use that feature. And the good thing is that you now have, first of all, the title, because that's what I filled in. You can still change it. The description is what I filled in. You can still change it. And you can link it to work items. I've done that automatically by adding the number of the ticket. And I can then also say I create my pull request. Now, this is a very basic one because it's for demo purposes. There are no policies set on this I lost the word. No policy set on this pull request, so I can just approve it myself. But I will show you that even here you can say that you can actually disable that I can approve my own pull requests. So I'm gonna autocomplete it so that it deletes the branch. Once it's been merged into the main branch, what happens now, it's merging the pull request. There are no conflicts. There haven't been any comments, because the thing is that if a colleague then sees any comments, the colleague sees anything that is wrong, will not actually fix it, but actually add comments in the code review. In the code by adding comments during the by adding comments saying, hey, add comments. But I mean, I've already completed it, so I can't show you that now. If somebody do want to see how that works, do make something. Yeah. Okay. A Git-like version controlled example. Okay. Thank you again, Ramon. So what happened now is I create a pull request, but it's not just finished. It's merged it into the master. But what happens now is it started actually a pipeline. And the pipeline is the one that says, I'm going to build the code that is in there. And what does it do is it's actually going to build all the code and generate what is called, in this case, a DAC pack that actually contains the model that represents the structure that your database needs to get. And based on that, but that's actually for the whole different talk. The SQL Server, I call it SQL, the DAC pack engine will then actually say, these are actually either the create statements, the alter statements, or the insert statements that I need to do in order to get my database to the version that you do want to deploy. Now, I've actually already hotwired my environment. So what happens now is I am now the pipeline has actually built. So it's in green. That means the code that is being, what's it called? The code that has been merged into the main branch is code that as a one unit will actually be actually works, and there are no errors. Like I said, I hotwired it, so let's go and see at releases. What happens now is I've actually also started the release. It just started now a minute ago to the dev, and it's actually now going to deploy the DAC pack. And that's the whole point. But that's why when I went back to my pull request, I mentioned the ticket number. You can also, as part of your build process, saying if the build has completed successfully, you can then actually move your ticket from being in progress to being ready to test. Right, this says that it's been deployed, so let's go and have a look. Let's refresh, and there we go. There's a database, data mines, with the tables that are created. Is there any data in there? Yes, there is, because I actually added it as part of the post deployment scripts. But that's not really what this session is all about. So just say I got this table settings. Let me just go back. There we go. So now let's just let's see, what are we gonna do? Let's just are there anything? Are there any questions so far up until now? For
I don't see any questions passing by. I just made some shameless self-promotion. That's everything.
How dare you? But for those people that are going to the past data summit, please attend this session. This is, I mean, Olivier, he's an expert at this, so do not worry about it. So you will learn. Right. No questions, no comments, no ideas, suggestions from anyone? Is this clear? Right. Right. Let's just go back and say, right, go back to our board. 41, wait, go back to the board, create tables. Yeah, it's completed. I'm going to add another task now. We're going to remove table settings. There we go. I can then go say 42. Okay, so I go back to now you're actually seeing how I actually work. My most used tool is Notepad++, believe it or not, even more than any other tool that I use. You cannot believe how many times it's already saved my life. Right, so I've had this branch. Now, if you remember correctly, I don't know if you remember, one of the options that I did during the pull request when I created the autocomplete, I say delete the branch. Yes, it deleted the branch. It deleted the branch online. Let's put it that way. But the branch that I actually pushed, it's very important to know, is still here. So this branch is still, it still exists, but it only exists on your machine. It doesn't exist in the cloud, let's say. That's important to know because sometimes it can be interesting to say, I want to go and have a look at the actual change itself, and then you can actually revert to the branch. It's also important to know that if you don't do very much, like me, once in every 3 to 4 weeks, I have to spend about 10 minutes deleting my local branches because I have way too many branches. So let's go back and create a new branch. I already created the name, so I need to go now and say pull, because I'm going to pull in the main. I know I need to pull in the main because I know that things have changed. Now, I know I need to pull in the main. No, whenever I create a new branch, it's the first thing I do, is I pull in the main branch. Then if you want, you can say, oh, which commit is that? Have a quick look. Oh, yeah, well, I did know that that was the last one that was created, so I know I have the latest version. Let's create a new branch. So I now create, again, a new branch. Here we go. I remove the table settings. We do create. You can do it in 2 ways. I think some people will say, oh, I need to remove the definition. So I do this, Control KC, put it in comment. The definition doesn't exist. Yes, I understand why you would do that, but that's not the whole point. That's the whole point that you use branching. This table needs to go. I actually will delete the file. There we go. It's gone. The Git changes. It has actually detected that you actually are removing the file. And look, this is also a change that is detected. Why? It's because at the end of the day, your SQL project file is just a reference of the different files that are included in your project. Having said that, I just need to remove my settings table. I deleted it. So what is it going to do is it's going to drop the table. Yeah, problem solved. Yeah, that's exactly what we agreed on. Okay. Needed to remove. Anybody that was at Data Mines Connect and followed Rob's Ewell session on writing a good commit. I've learned something there, so that's why I'm writing such a long code. It's important to actually write what you need to do, what you are actually intending to do. Needed to remove the table as we do not need it for this project. There we go. Hoopla. And that's the beauty of the naming convention that I've applied. I don't need to look up my number. I know that my number is 42. I link it to 42. There we go. Remove table settings. There we go. Hoopla. We commit all. We push. And we start the process all again. I'm going to create it in the browser again. You can then see these are the two changes that are being changed. What is being changed here is the reference to the SQL file is being removed, and the SQL file itself is being removed. It's all included. You're welcome, Ramon. And if you have any questions, please do get in touch. Then we do create. We set it to delete it, and we approve it. Now it's being merged, and the whole process starts again. So while that is doing, I see that a common question has come in from Deirdre. Do you have any recommendations for tools or scripts that would organize the SQL proj in a way that makes it easier to do comparisons on the merge? Well, first of all, Visual Studio throws it in at random. I would actually be the first person to say it will not be at random. There is actually a reason. But when you say organize the SQL project file in a way, it's easier to do comparison on merge. What comparison do you want to make? Because when the change is being made to your SQL project file, it's purely a change that changes to a change that is being made to your project itself. So if it's a change in a file, you will have to do the comparison on the file level. So can you give me an example, Deirdre, at all? No?
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
yes.
Brilliant. Sorry, I wasn't sure if my mic would work. So I found in the past that if you are merging branches, if you've got multiple feature branches and you're merging them in and there are conflicts, that you will end up with a situation because of the way Visual Studio adds objects that you won't necessarily have them in a nice, alphabetical order within the block. If you've got a lot of objects added across different branches, you can end up with a situation where trying to do a visual comparison across the files within your comparison tool becomes very, very complicated.
Well, whenever I have a conflict, I actually use Visual Studio itself to do the conflict, to actually fix the conflict. I actually do it in Visual Studio itself. Let me just see how I could. So I've got table settings. Let me see if I can recreate the situation that you want to. Oh, actually, if I now go to my main branch, right? And I don't pull it in. Hold on. I've done that. Yeah, I just create a brand new branch. Just so I I pulled the main branch. I think I'm going to create a conflict this way. I'm just going to start from my main branch without actually bringing in the last commit that I've just committed, the removal of the settings table. So if I create now a new, version 2, create a new branch, you will see that, there you go, my DBA settings table is there. So if now I want to say, gonna now change something somewhere else. Let's say in the session table. There we go. And there we go. I've only got one session. I'm working, and this is actually going to create a conflict, right? We are trying to create a conflict. Yes, conflict dot. Commit all and push. There we go. Save and commit. Sorry, I didn't press save. There we go. Now. Wait. And I'm going to add a new table. Conflicts. Conflicts, and then I need to change this here, conflicts. I'm just trying to ensure. Conflicts, there we go. I'm not going to create any primary keys. It's just for demo purposes. DBO.conflicts, there we go. Here we go. Yeah. So what I've done is I've started from the master branch. That is not the most recent one because the pull request has not been included in this version of my branch. I still have my settings table and I've added a brand new table to it. There we go. That's what we see. And here you see that I'm adding a new SQL project branch, a new change to the actual SQL project file. And I think by doing the pull request, I will actually, this should create a conflict. We commit again and we push because we made a change since then. There we go. For all intents and purposes, if I can give you a tip, always use the push version, because from the minute you've done push and you happen to fall ill and you're ill for a long time, your colleagues can continue with your work because they can actually download the branch that you've pushed. It's a small detail, but it's very important. Even if you don't do a merge, always do commit and push. Add commit messages. Let's see what this does. This is not the right pull request message, but hey, I'm going to say create. I got my 3 files that are being changed. And then I'll say create. Why are there no merge conflicts? The demo goes is when you do want to create a merge conflict, you cannot create a merge conflict. I don't understand why. Didn't work. No merge conflicts. Wait. If I now create another branch based off of this one. See what it does. And I remove the table conflicts. See what it does then. Yeah. But just a minute. Set. I'm going to prove it. Complete it. I'm going to merge it in. Now, while this happens, I'm going to try this. Otherwise, I don't know if this is going to work. Testing again. Commit all and push. There we go. Create in browser. Testing again. No. Deirdre, I'm sorry, I cannot create a merge conflict. But actually, come to think of it, what I will do is, oh, wait, what I now can do, let me just see if I can create it this way. I have my master, merge it into the, go into my master. You just see, I pull it in. Okay. Go to my version 3. I'm going to try this, and otherwise I'm going to leave it for what it is. But moral of the story, what I'm trying to say anyway is that there we go. It changes, commit all. Oh no, yeah, no. What I actually now want to do is I want to merge the master into this branch. Aha, merge, save. There we go. Yes, I did create a conflict. And I think this is the situation that you are talking about, Deirdre?
So it's the conflict within the SQL project file.
Yes,
if you've got a lot of developers working on different branches and you're having to merge backwards and forwards, if you have objects being created and removed, the build include statements may not necessarily line up in a nice alphabetical way within the block, and it can be very difficult to kind of do that comparison.
This is a beautiful example here of what we're talking about. Now, to be honest, this is something that I am not, I don't actually pay attention to, in the sense that what I just leave it to Visual Studio to actually render it correctly. Having said that, if you do want to change it, what I would do if I were you is actually go back to, if I then actually the way I would do that, because as you can see, let me just say which one are we going to do? Just a minute. That's staged. These settings, there we go. Unmerged, where is merge in progress? Let's just abort it for the time being. But what I see what you mean. Okay, let's just say you go to the includes of your project. So open folder in File Explorer. So the way I would do it, I don't do this, but this is the way I would do it, right? Is I would actually close my solution, then open the file in Notepad++. Go. Build includes, and then I would, oh, okay. So let's post deploy build deploy. Oh, here it is. So I would then actually here say, well, these are, I can then actually change this. And what you could do is, because you can see this is an item group and this is also an item group. So I can actually put these together. So I would actually manually go and change it once in a while. There we go. We keep that. That is the build include. So actually this needs to move here. Now, what I'm doing here is something that scares a lot of people off. I admit that. But actually there is, if you are keeping your mind with it, it's not that complicated. So, and that's also the big advantage of what's it called? Of using. So what I didn't say is what I actually tend to do is I actually use numbers for my columns, for my folders. And for those people that have noticed it, the reason why I do that is so that they actually use the same order as in Management Studio. What I then would do is I take either only the build ones or the nuns or all of them. So let's say I only take the build ones. I know that it needs to come here, so I'll put an XXX here. I would then go into Excel. I'll paste it in there. There we go. Order A to Z. There we go. And then I copy it back. It's in the XXX. There we go. And they're now in order. That's how I would do it. It's not a tool. It's not an external tool. The first time it can come over as daunting, but actually it's very quick and reliable. In my personal opinion. Does that kind of answer your question, Deirdre?
Okay, yeah, I think brilliant. That's one approach that's definitely worth looking into. Thank you.
The thing is, professionally, I also give sessions on how to work in Excel. And one of the statements that I make at the beginning of my training session, in Excel, you can do almost anything except for baking pancakes. So Excel is one of those tools. That's why it's always pinned. Is one of those tools that is every day is open. There we go. Right. So have I covered? I've covered your question. Right. Any other questions?
No other questions at this moment.
Damn. I would have expected a lot of questions, but I mean, yeah, okay. But I do like your question, Deirdre. It's something that I don't think of, but I hope that it helps you. If there are any other questions, you can always contact me at these places.